Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. And today we're reading chapters 13 through 15 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. It's just AKA fury, anger, pain. This is just not, these are some of my least favorite chapters of this book. They're good, they're well written, just in terms of what happens.
Yeah, before we get fully into Bree's awful experience, let's talk a little bit about what happens before she gets to, not even the end of the road, but it feels like an end of some road. First off, Bree and Lark were attacked by demons on their way back to the lodge, as we covered in the last episode of Wizard Team. And it's like rudely right whenever Bree receives her first gift from a Merlin. So also side eye to Cell for not being the first Merlin to give her something. That's on you, Cell. Cell comes to the rescue by exposing himself to the mage guard after he's been on the run, and letting himself be arrested rather than let his girl Bree get taken. Bree also tries to dismiss the charges that they put against Cell, as Scion of Arthur, but Erebus points out that since she hasn't claimed her title yet, she can't do anything. So she doesn't even have a chain to yank because the chain is going to give her a chain yet. Erebus drives Bree to the lodge where they meet. The rest of the reasons and essentials for the rite. They all are giving like vibes. The rite begins in the same cave where they were whenever Bree first picked up Excalibur, and she is taken into a new vision, one that takes her to the spirits of the Knights of the Round Table and Arthur. Right whenever she touches Excalibur, she also finds herself and Arthur drawn to Lancelot, and when she touches Lancelot, she's able to have a conversation with one and only Nick Davis.
Yeah, so that pushes us now into part 2, which is titled Power, and chapter 13. So Nick is really here. It's not like, I mean, it is still kind of not an illusion, but this is a magical situation, but it's actually him. And so he asks Bree where they are. But he isn't surprised that it's a right, because before he like she brought him there, he felt like a tug in his chest that was pulling towards her. So I'm curious what the other, like, I assume the other scions are also feeling this, and like obviously they are not there, but at least feel that something's happening. And so Bree is kind of like, don't worry, we're coming to get you. And Nick is immediately like, absolutely not. Do not under any circumstances come and find me. Um, Basically he's saying that it's
He
too
mentions his
dangerous.
father.
Yeah, he mentions his father, but he gets cut off, so we don't actually know like what specifically about his father is terrifying him so much, but he's like, it's not a good idea, just leave me. But then Lancelot interrupts and asks Bree if she's ready to complete the oath. So he's like, look, you and your little boyfriend, we don't have the time for that. This is actually this isn't about
But it's
that.
also kind of funny because it's probably the first time they've ever had like the scions speak to each other through one of the nights or whatever. So I'm
Which
like,
honestly
here's
would be really
Bree.
cool to like, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe not,
to
but kind
figure
of.
out, but to learn more about. I'm like, here's Bree, Black Girl Magic incarnate, just like starting
Mm-hmm.
up a whole telepathy system through the order that no
Yeah.
one's probably ever used before,
It's because
and
they're not mediums. They just don't have the sauce.
they don't have the range.
Yeah. Hate that for them. They could never. So Bree initially is like, I don't, whatever about the oath, like bring Nick back up. We were in the middle of a conversation. But Lancelot ignores that and just keeps asking, like, will you complete the oath? So then Bree thinks, so she says, will I make this oath to the table? An answer falls from my mouth. No. And I remember reading that the first time and being like, "What do you mean no? Isn't that why we got here in the first place?"
Mhm.
But I
There's
get
also
it at
something
the
about,
same
like,
time. I get it. Like I do.
yeah.
But definitely when you read it the first time, your first like reaction is, "But ain't that what this is for?" But
Yeah, I
also I
remember
get
reading
it.
it and being
Like,
like, "No." Like, did I read no, but
what
I
do you
was
mean
supposed
by
to say
that?
yes? Like, let me reread. Did it say yes, but my brain just somehow picked
Right.
up no?
Or did they like word the question differently so that no
Yeah.
is the positive answer?
Like, I misread this. Something
Right.
is off. Yeah, I also, like, when I read it this time, I was like, and taking in the intensity of, like, these white men being very adamant about her taking this oath. I'm like, I was like, that's a setup for me to say no, to be honest. Like,
Mhm.
anytime someone tries to tell me what to do,
Literally,
I'm going to
literally
be
that.
like, wait.
Actually, I don't wanna do that
First
anymore
off,
because
wait, what's going on?
it's like I woulda done that, but now that
Exactly.
you're telling me, nope,
Now she said for me to do it.
we're done. I can no
And
longer do this.
it could be actually common sense. It could be something that could probably
Mhm.
benefit both of us.
Yep.
But because you told me to do something, even if I already had in my brain to do the thing,
Mhm.
because you told me, because you tried to command me,
Exactly.
now we have issues. Because
Yep.
no one tells me what I'm going to do.
Nope. So now we're all just sitting here uncomfortable and probably in danger, but oh well.
Oh well.
Should have just let me make my own decision.
Right.
And
Things feel better.
I do kind of feel like she would have done it if she wasn't being pressured cuz she came into it with all the intention to do it and to oath
Hmm.
herself. Like she's gotten this far, but I think that honestly like this is the like it's the truest response. Like even if she had said yes, she doesn't actually want to be oath to these people. Like she has
No.
so much um like there's such a block and like we'll see because then she has this conversation with Arthur, but like all she associates with them is like pain and danger and like death, right? So she doesn't actually want to oath herself. She's trying to do it to get to a different to whatever her other ends are. Um but if
And her
you're
ends
asking her
initially,
that
if we were
directly and you're pushing her to do it,
no,
she's gonna tell the truth. And the truth
yeah,
is not. I don't actually want to oath myself to
no.
6th century like white dudes who couldn't just die and leave everybody alone. Like I actually don't want to do that.
If
Thanks.
we harken back to what brought Bree here to like wanting to make an oath, it was that one, she wanted to be able to control the like search for Nick, and two, she wants to be able to control like being able to know what the order is up to with her newfound powers as the sign of Arthur, so she can like make sure the people that she cares about are safe. She
Mhm.
just heard from Nick Davis that that first thing she's been trying to do, she needs to leave it alone. She hasn't even had time to process that before
Right.
homeboy trying to tell her what she needs to be doing. So what that feels suspicious that right whenever I'm told that one of the reasons I've had to come in here and make this oath has now been taken away from me as a thing that I should like as a rightful path for me to take.
Right.
That feels a little suspicious that you would cut me off from the rest of that conversation so I can
Mhm.
make an informed decision about what I'm about to do today.
Right. And like we've already like we talked about I think that was last episode or the one before, I can't remember. But like Bree is not brought in on this. Like, she cares about her people specifically, like, that's what she cares about. She does not care about the order and their hundreds of years of tradition and whatever, like, that's not her thing. So, I just feel like, yeah, uh it's shocking when she says no, but it's understandable. Like, it definitely makes sense. Um, so then, Arthur's voice comes in, and he says, "You are a foreigner." Um And so the other kinda, like, nights and stuff kinda, like, fade away,
I'm sorry. How is that a way to open a conversation?
first of all. It's like, "What's that gotta do with me?" Like, "Why are I'm a foreigner? Great, thanks." And
You're a foreigner in my head.
right, like
I live here.
get up out of my body first
You're
of all, because that's
first
the
of
thing is
all.
like all the other knights fade away, but like it's not like Arthur appears in front of her. Like he's literally inside of her, like how her grandma was in Legendborn, where she's like talking about how she kind of feels like she's full of like you're full of water, kind of like a glass full of water, and he's just like in her body sloshing around. Like, bye. So Bree says, "You mean I don't look like you? Well, you don't look like me either." And then Arthur goes, "And you're a woman." I'm just like, it's giving Mulan when she's exposed on the mountain.
I honestly though, like I'm like you're clearly have never been made to have to like explain yourself to someone as a white man in King
Hmm.
Arthur because you're coming in here stating the obvious, which in a way that makes it feel like why would I ever listen to this man about anything? Because he can't help but to say obvious things as if they mean something, and they
Right.
mean
They
nothing.
actually don't mean
He's
anything
the
at all.
one invading your body. He cannot be part of this world in the present day unless it's through you. And this is what he just chooses to. This is how you talk to me?
Like,
Absolutely
no.
not.
No. How about that? How about get out? Get out. Um, so then he kind of tries to like, you know, get in his manipulation bag. So then he calls her daughter of sons, which immediately one echoes what Vera calls her daughter of daughters. So there we go, appropriating
Like
shit.
so
Then
clearly he's been
also
listening
like
in on conversations that he's put up to be eavesdropping upon.
and then also like don't nobody want to be a daughter to your sons? Like for a couple reasons. One, there have not been sons since Vera was violated, right? So you're like calling me the sons of all these like violent ass people. Like, no, I'm don't put that on me. I'm not claiming that. Like, what are you? No, absolutely not. Kishana in the chat says it will never not be hilarious to me that he comes out of the gate with isms when he's not in his own body. Like, literally, you don't actually have a body. You're actually dead. You've been dead for centuries. Like, please move on. Like,
I just
just move on.
I'm the foreigner, but you're in my head.
Like,
I
come
just
on. He's so irritating. Um, so Bree is immediately like, I have a name. So let's not even do that. And so it says you can call me Bree or Brianna. And then he's like, oh, Bree. Because BRI means power in Welsh. So he's like, oh, that's such a like uh the what's the word? Like it's fortuitous type thing. He's like, "You're my Brie," and it's like, bro, stop trying to own shit. Like, go away. Just go away. Leave.
you're not gonna come out of your ism is your xenophobic, like misogynist, like
Like, I
racist.
just
You're not gonna come out of it. Like we know, I clocked your tea. We know what you are. You're not gonna be able to turn this conversation around in a way that makes me want to like hang out with you in my head.
no.
I don't. I don't want it.
Like, please. So then Bree is like, in case you forgot, like reminds him how she's his scion in the first place. Like, um, and so he sort of tries to distance himself from it, or like take himself out of the like responsibility by explaining that for one he didn't call old boy, like dude wasn't an awakened scion, um but then also and that he learned of what happened when Bree did, um and then also saying that he also couldn't communicate even when he was awakened, like he couldn't communicate to the other scions in the way that
Can we talk about his
he
false
could with Bree.
apology?
Yeah, that too, because he goes, I wish it had not been committed. And it's like, why?
The why.
You wish what
The
had not been
why.
committed, and then why do you wish it had not been committed? It's not, oh, I
Why?
wish
The
it
why.
hadn't been committed because it's a violation of this woman. It
No.
like you probably wish it because you want to be back with the Davises. Like that's
You wish it because it was with a black woman. And
Exactly.
now you feel violated because when you wake up, you're in the head of a foreign woman.
Mhm.
When
A woman.
you're in
Imagine.
her body.
Come
You're
on.
the foreign substance
Come on.
within this woman. You're committing the same violation that your ancestor, well, that's your descendant,
Mhm.
visited upon her bloodline.
Mhm.
And you're talking over here, oh, I wish that had never happened. Sir, we know why you wish it never happened.
Come on. Kishana said Arthur got her over here like the Demon King got points. And
Sometimes demons,
stop.
sometimes demons are exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Oof. I've just been a few too many times that demons have had points, and I just
Yeah, I mean, Arthur's
there's a
definitely
reason
not
why they're
making
here.
any. So he says again, he's like talking about how she's the first scion he can actually communicate with, and like is like he never imagined this could happen. Obviously, his mind is turning. He's got plots and plans and schemes going on
He wants to
up there.
experiment. Yes.
He's trying to figure out, oh, how can I turn this to my own ends?
Yes.
But he calls I only wrote this because, Beyonce of it all. He calls Brie unique. Um and then Brie is like, at what cost? And he says, an immense one. Which is irritating because it's like, if you must be here, I need you to say anything of substance. Because right now you're just wasting her time.
And I just feel like they both know that this man is wasting her time.
Mm-hmm.
He is trying to see how far he can go. He thinks this is enough. This is the insulting part to me. He thinks that what he's saying to Brie is enough to actually sway her
Mm-hmm.
into allowing him to do what he's always wanted to do, which is to actually come back to life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then just take
And
over her body.
he's going to be annoyed that it's within this like this unique foreign woman's body. But he's willing to see over that as long as he can just
Yeah.
come back to life.
He's not worried about that part of it. Um,
It disgusts him,
yeah,
but
but
not
he's
enough for him
not
to not
like,
want to use it.
yeah, and not enough for him to realize why it's not actually gonna be advantageous
I
for him
just
to do.
part of me is
But
like, should Bree be insulted because like he thinks that this is enough like be for her? Like he's like, oh, she's gonna feel like this is a better prospect because I'm the
mhm.
oldest white man of legend. She's gonna definitely be enticed by this because she's a foreign woman.
Yeah.
Or which does he has he had like in his past awakenings felt that the white men that he awakened within did see him with that awe, so he just expects her to hold a similar level of awe for him. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
coming just from like he sees her a certain way.
I
It's also
think
from like he thinks he's that dude. So
yeah.
he really just thinks that like people just are in awe of him and would be bending over backwards to have the opportunity to be possessed by him.
I think it's that, and I think that he thinks she's desperate because she hasn't been able to channel her ether, which again is
Mm.
his fault. He's actually manipulating that. Um, so I think it's that too. Like he thinks that she wants his power more than she actually does. So yeah, so as he kind of talks, Bree's anger on behalf of Vera grows, and then Arthur again tries to relate because he's not really understanding where her like anger is coming from, where her grief is coming from, where like why she doesn't fuck with him. Like he's not understanding the actual, and I don't think that he could understand like the actual like deep like anger and rage that comes from this. But so because he doesn't do that, he's trying to kind of co-opt it and relate. He's like, we both fight monsters, be they demons or humans. And it's like, did you forget the humans were your people? And not in the sense of like they were white people, but like they're literally your line. Like this is literally within the system that you created. So I'm just
And I feel like this
what's not
happened like
clicking.
I feel like I like that this is part of the story because it's like I feel like this happens all the time
Yeah.
where people will be like, "Well, I don't know what you want me to do about that. This we're here because you did what
Because of
we
you,
got
or even just
we
trying
got
to
here."
relate as if like we're similarly oppressed or similarly struggling because you know what I mean, like as if it's the same systems or the same things that are like plaguing us. That's not what this is. Especially
My
when you're actually the oppressor. Like whatever.
Yeah. But I feel like my thing is like whenever people are like, we're here because of you. Like you did this. Like
Mhm.
I like whenever inevitably, whenever a discussion happens about like the Supreme Court justices and like, well, maybe we should have put like things in place or whatever so that there wouldn't be any like bribery or whatever. Who's we? You're saying the American people, but like we don't hold the power to do.
Right.
You hold the power to put restrictions and recuse yourselves, but you didn't do it. And the American people are supposed to feel away, but you did it.
Right. Literally. So he's like talking about like, back when the war was happening, uh I too was like worried about my friends dying and I was thinking no more deaths. He's like he's doing too much. And then he drowns Bree in their combined grief.
Manipulation of the
Just
highest
straight
order.
up. Straight up. He then says, I think you do as I did. You invoke grief now so that death will never surprise you again. You imagine how it could happen so that you can imagine how it cannot. You wish to destroy it before it destroys you. Is this the right of it? Um, and it's like, the answer is yes. And I think that, and Bree is kind of like, we've seen it already, just like her fear of losing more people. And like,
Mm-hmm.
even just the like, she's talked about the kind of pre grief that she has for Nick. And being like afraid that he's gonna be taken from her permanently. Um and so she kind of lists off like Alice, Nick, Sel, Mariah, Patricia, her dad, like just people that she's worried about losing. And so in some ways the manipulation is like it's kind of working until Arthur goes, and I could teach you though. And Bree's immediately like, skirt, stop right there. We're not
I
we're
mean,
not doing that. Nice
it
try.
would be cute if it was like more like Khalees, kind of like I could teach you, but I have to charge. Like it would
Right.
be like a cute little sign.
That's basically what he's saying.
But
He's not
like
saying it out loud
it
completely, but that
is.
is what he's saying.
But he's not doing what he needs to. You know what I'm saying? Khalees was cute about it. She's like, I give you a demonstration. Like I can bring all the boys come to the yard. I can show you that. Let
I
me
can
give
show
you a
you that.
demonstration. I can show you with evidence. And
Yeah.
I can show you how we can work together. But at no point does he talk about working with her. At no point does he talk about it being a collaboration of any sorts. He's
And
like,
the
I
last
see
time,
that I can possess you,
right. And so Bree does mention,
and
she's like,
I'm interested.
Bree's like, I'm not letting you possess me again. And he's like, oh no, we wouldn't have to do that. But it's like, come on,
Liar.
that's the end game. Like, be for real. Be so for real. Like, no. Um, and so Bree is like, I have teachers, it's Sel and William. And he goes, why borrow knowledge when you possess the source?
Possess is coming up again, Arthur.
Hello. It's coming out of him.
Mm-hmm.
So Bree, she does kind of acknowledge her like yearning for strength, power, and control, which like Easter, not really Easter egg, but like connection. Those are the like titles of the first 3 sections of this book. Um, and Arthur kind of, so then Arthur tells her to summon him. So again, immediately is like, no, dude. And he says, only a dragon may meet a dragon. Only a king can teach a king. Bree at this point is over it. She's like, no. So she uses her root to burn him out. So it
Wait,
like
before
burn. Oh yeah, go ahead.
doesn't he invoke an image of like Pendragon and an actual dragon at some point in her
Yes, he
head?
does. I meant to write that down.
And so, like, when I
I
first read this, I was like, so
I
can
hate
Bree
that.
shapeshift into a dragon?
I hate that it's coming from him, but I'm also intrigued.
Is
But not
there,
right now,
or is there a dragon in the world that Bree can like, what is happening with dragons and
I mean,
Pendragon?
something's
And I
happening with
want to know.
dragons. Something's happening with dragons. Something's happening. I'm very excited for that, by the way. But like, we can table it for now. But something's happening.
We gotta go,
Um,
like, but just like note to everyone
yes,
listening,
yes,
there we are open to theories.
yes. Right,
about
because we see
Bree.
some of it sort of later, but like it's still not,
It's not clarified.
it's not as yeah, it's not fully fleshed out. Um so Bree burns him out, and then also in doing that kind of like burns the room that she's in. She stumbles and falls into water. So she's now in a forest in a stream. Arthur's voice is muted, but he's still yapping. But Bree stands and like leaves the stream, and as she does, um, it dries up behind her. And so she keeps walking like toward this rock, and she hears a bunch of disembodied whispers in the darkness. And like we've heard these phrases before: the point of our arrow, the tip of our spear, wound turned weapon. So those are like her ancestors from Vera's line, so she's kind of like being drawn towards them.
I just
Um,
want to really quickly clown on
yeah.
Arthur because can you imagine speaking to someone spiritually and they go into a whole other realm to escape talking to you, but you're still talking?
And you're still,
You're
he just
still
yapping,
talking?
just talking. He can't stop. And so as Bree, she like goes towards this rock, and she here, let me so I marvel about how this place, wherever it is near opposite of the Ogoth. Instead of standing on an ancient boulder in the center of a pond in the middle of a stone cave, I'm standing on a moss-covered mound, in the center of a growing forest. Where the Ogoth feels sacred and preserved, this place feels both ancient and alive. While Excalibur slept, or where Excalibur slept, I stand. In this place, I am the blade. I feel like that part is like interesting in the ways that like she's been doing it, like kind of contrasts her root from her ether. And I think she also venerates that magic more than the other. Um or yeah, she connects to it better or more. She feels like it's more important. So yeah, I think it just kind of reinforces also, why she said no. Like why she was like, nah, I'm not doing this. I'm not actually gonna um tie myself to this magic more than really I want to. Vera appears, and Bree feels relieved, right? It's just, again, different from how she felt when Arthur showed up. Vera kind of explains that they're in the plane between life and death, and that the right brought her here, but she's now at her own, like in her own kind of center. Um, so she's Vera says the spellcraft the Kingsmen use to create the plane in their own image is but a poor sorcerer's fabrication of what a natural born medium can achieve.
Not a snap. She was
Yep.
like, and I love it because I'm like, even what Barrett's basically saying is that like even ancient like people who've been able to communicate across like life and death for like centuries cannot hold power over the plane that is
Mhm.
in between life and death. It doesn't matter how long they've been at it. It's not, they don't have control over the entire thing. And that's
Mhm.
like,
And
if
they've
that
like
doesn't stick
twisted
in,
it like
yeah.
it's the same. It's like reminds me of when Patricia was talking about the order and talking about like it's colonizer magic. Like it's not that no one else can use this magic. Like people from all different types of cultures, and it's a resource that's used, that can be found everywhere, but it's the way that they use it. Um and it's also not the most powerful.
It's also the way that they like mythologize it. Like they have
Mhm.
made themselves like they've told centuries of lies to each other and to people that they try to pull into it, that like this is the thing that keeps people alive. It's like life and death is like a thing that they control because they keep the demons at bay. They keep people like safe. They keep the like whole like thing from falling apart. And it's
Mhm.
like, no, this is like, how dare you ever insinuate that you have control over life and death itself? And it honestly makes sense of like Arthur and like within the time period he's from, feeling like he like has discovered something that he can like be part of for time immortal. But actually, whenever he, understands Bree's abilities, he's like, oh, I'm not really living. I could live through her. And it's
Mhm.
like that's how like
That's their
bent
whole
they
thing.
are on
Yeah.
reliving. Yeah.
And that's
And
why
never
they
never
tied
dying.
themselves to the magic to their bloodline in the first place. Like, they're not able
They
to just
never wanna
let it
die.
go.
They
Yeah.
wanna feel immortal.
Mhm. So these streams, so she's in this forest, and then there's all types of streams that are there, and they're all her bloodlines. So that Bree can, because she's a medium, she can open or close at her will. And so it basically all, so it's like all of her bloodlines, right? Like it's her, in this case, this is Vera's line, but she also, her dad's line is somewhere, or her dad's family um is also somewhere in this forest. Like if she kept kind of journeying through it, she would find kind of all of her people, which I think is really dope. And I think especially like, obviously right now there's no time to really like fully explore it, especially, and also like plot wise, we don't have the time to fully explore it. But like the fact that she can do that, it makes me think about when she first saw the like wall of whatever with the lines on them. I can't remember what they're called, but like the scion kind of, where they kind of could go back, all the way to the 6th century. And her like talking about how she felt cheated, because it's like a lot of black folks can't do that, especially black folks who were brought through the Middle Passage can't do that. Um and in this case, because of her magic, like she can actually. And so the fact that
Yeah.
she's kind of been given that back is cool.
It's very powerful. But I also feel
Mhm.
like I wondered if your thoughts on her labeling. So um basically whenever she like, hits the plane, Vera tells her that it can appear in many ways. And before she visited, like Bree visited Vera and Vera's vision of the plane,
Mhm.
and now um Vera is visiting Bree's plane, and Bree said claims that it's not really her plane, it's the rights. And then she also, when she's talking about like the root, she talks about it being Vera's magic. Like she says, I've never been able to call on your power at will, talking about
Mhm.
Vera's power.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting to me that like she, even though these are her bloodlines that flow through her, and it's been no one else has been able to awaken Arthur for
Right.
centuries, nor have they been able to like carry root like she's carrying it right now for a while.
Mhm.
So she still is not in possession of in her brain of it being her powers. She's
Yeah.
claiming them as these other specific powers. What do you feel like that's coming from in her?
I think it's probably just like the way that she learned, like kind of the trauma attached to it, and like the way that she learned. I mean, like, it's interesting because like it's definitely her magic at this point, but I think in some ways it allows her to be kind of distant from it. Which I guess feels like it's probably a defense mechanism, probably because it was just so like, yeah, traumatic to go through. And she definitely, as much as she wants to learn how to use it, it definitely doesn't feel like she is comfortable with it or even wants it. Like that's not why she infiltrated the order in the first place. So,
Yeah. And it feels like, I mean, I know that she like we know that she hasn't been able to like control either of them, like either of the Magic's Arthurs or like being a medium or whatever in a way that has
mhm.
felt like satisfying to her yet. So I can see her being like, is it mine if I can't like be able to call upon it whenever I want to, or like whenever
Right.
if I can't make it work the way that I want it to, like building up out the armor or whatever, like is it really
Mhm.
mine? Um so I get that part, but I'm also just kind of like it's kind of interesting, like especially with the root, like that she's like this is your power, not mine.
Yeah.
Like I can't use your powers. Like, but she gave you her
Right.
powers.
Right. Yeah, it is interesting. Um And in doing that, she also was asking Vera, like, how can I? Because when she burned Arthur out, she used it as at will, whereas like usually in the real world, she can only call on the root when she's in danger. And so she's asked Vera, like, how can I do that? Um, Vera doesn't know, but also there's really no time to elaborate because something's happening. Um,
But I
so
also think
Vera
it's
kind
fun
of,
that like yeah, but it's like, oh. But
Yeah,
I also think
she
it's
like looks
interesting.
over Bree's shoulder and is like, "Yikes."
I think it's interesting that Vera, or I just think it's funny that the way that Bree asked about it, she's like, "I need something to attack." I have like it's only but
Right.
like the root comes up as a defense, and I don't control it when it comes up because it's doing protection for me without me
Mm-hmm.
trying to invoke the protection itself. However, whenever I'm ready to like attack something, like it's not popping up for me, and I just think it's funny in the way that like any novice to any powerful ability is in any like medium where they're like, okay, where's the power at though? Like
Right.
I'm new. Tell me how I can make sure that I can beat everyone up. Like it's just so like such a trope of like I
Yeah.
got powers. Now I'm gonna fry everyone. It's like
Which is
really.
like, but she definitely needs, but also I don't think she would need to use it to do anything other than defend herself if Arthur was letting her use her ether. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I can understand, but like it just also sounds like she doesn't really want to identify. Like there's just like
no,
this is
definitely
why like
not.
yeah, whenever like this is happening, I didn't really take it. I didn't really suspect Arthur too much, mostly because I thought it was like a rejection of some sort. Like I thought it was like an almost like an allergy, where she was
Mhm.
like, "I reject this. Ugh,
Mhm.
it grosses me out." And it was like her brain, like psychologically, just having trouble with reckoning with like her disgust for
Yeah.
how she ended up being part of Arthur's bloodline, and then also trying to call upon the powers that she received in being the heir to Arthur's bloodline.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Um so Bree so yeah, so Vera, so there's danger, and then all of a sudden Bree is back in the Ogoth. Um there's a pain in her shoulder, Excalibur falls. Teresa, if you remember her from the funeral, has stuck her with a syringe. Um
And if that's not a setup,
Come on. Cuz what are you giving
you're like
these
send the
shots for?
expendable in to poker.
First of all. So gets her with a syringe. Bree's root erupts immediately because again, she's in danger. And then Teresa falls into the water. Her root is then met by an ether shield, which is the mage guard protecting the Regents from her. Bree pulls the needle out, and then here comes Max and his hating ass. Bree swings at him, but he catches it, which I think is partly because he's a Merlin, but also she has this whatever in her system now, so it slowed her down. And then he goes nighty night, Crown Scion, as she passes out. I still want to know what his problem is. Like what?
He sounds
Like why
like
is he like
a
this?
OO's movie villain. Like he sounds like the villain from Brink. Like how
Mm,
he just like they have those like one liners or whatever to people like in
yeah,
the OO's movies or whatever. Like 99. Like it sounds like one of those.
he practiced that. As soon as he found out it was happening, he was like, "All right, I know
He's
what
like,
I'm
I
about
gotta
to
have the
say."
like if anything goes and I can get close to her when this is happening, I gotta have something to say.
And it's just like, you don't though. But also,
You're
why are
so
you so
insignificant,
mad? Why are
actually.
you
Like you're
so
no
mad?
one.
Literally, actually, quite literally. He gets reminded of that in a bit too. He's a little too big for his britches. He's got a little too much dip on his chip.
Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/blacknerdscreate to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves.
Oh, that's nice. That's clever.
Oh my goodness.
That's clever.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Okay, yeah, so moving into chapter 14, Bree is woken by basically an ether barrier, like her ears kind of pop because and she doesn't know if they like entering one or exiting or whatever, but she jolts awake to find herself restrained by leather straps in the back of a van. She breaks one of the straps and then sees she's in the back of a van on this metal stretcher with Max and then Ramirez, so two of the mage guard. Bree punches Max in the face and breaks his nose. Love that for him. Love that for her. And then they're calling for the van to stop as Bree breaks free from the other restraint. And then Ramirez attacks her, kind of like throwing her against the wall, which then kind of hits her in the back of the head and immediately is burned by his oath.
This is so traumatizing. Like, having like read Britney Spears' memoir, whenever she got like strapped up and they took her out of they drugged her up, dragged her out of her house on a stretcher, she was completely traumatized for that. Like whenever she like was in a situation where she knew that people had power over her, she was like, I have to act in a way that'll allow me to get out of the situation safely because they might put me on the stretcher again.
Yeah, it's like it's terrifying. And there's no real reason for it. And then on top of it, like these mage guard actually hate her, it's one of those things where it's like, why do you like it feels personal in a way that's really like and I'm sure the answer is like racism. But in this case, they're both non-black, but like these two are of color. I don't know about Ramirez. I'm
it's also
assuming
interesting to
Ramirez
me that like
but
but they've like bought into a white power structure that is the order, so there's always that.
But it's also
But
like
it's
this
also
question of the mage guard and like and even just Merlins in general. Like I don't know that we have yet seen enough about how like we get hints of it or whatever, and I think we get more in this book, but just like more about what the Merlins are taught and trained, especially in relation to the scions. Because there's a level of saltiness that Max has with, I guess, Selin Lark that I'm not really clear on, and maybe it's because he was trying to be a king's mage and he didn't make the cut or something. But like, but even like, and then I'm curious like what his deal is with like it just is interesting, and like Ramirez literally meant to hurt her, which is why his oath is burning him. And it's like
that was what
it just feels
I
like an
wanted to know,
extra
is because
added thing versus them just doing their job, you know?
But isn't that just like the oath that like the King's Guard or the guard, like the mage guard made for the order in general, like science in
It's for
general?
the
Because like
Legendborn.
because Bree hasn't actually taken the oath. She rejected the oath for Arthur.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if she had
It's
taken
just
the
the
oath for Arthur,
Legendborn oath. It's not like the Crown Scion one, which that probably would have killed him. But
that's what I'm saying. I was wondering. I'm like, if Arthur, if she had taken the oath from Arthur, would he just be ashes? Like, would he just
Probably. But it's just interesting, like the intention behind it is like, why are you
for a death blow?
Right. Like what's the issue here? And I mean the answer could be racism. And likely is. But I'm just it makes me really curious about the mage guard in general and just like yeah, we don't get enough of them to have a full like or a clear idea, I guess. So then Erebus shows up and he's like, "You fool." Which anytime anyone calls somebody a fool, it cracks me up. I don't know. It tickles me. I don't care what the context is.
It's very like it's very essentialist villain, like these fools, these poor souls.
Right. Yeah. It always makes me
poor
laugh.
desperate souls. Yeah.
So he like kind of reiterates they're not allowed to kill her. Or really hurt her, but like they're not allowed to because they don't know who's next in line.
that shows me that they've been trying to like
To
figure
find.
out her bloodline. Like they've been looking for her replacement for a minute. Like
Mhm.
it's been like a month. They've been looking for a month. They've been trying to figure out there's a replacement.
Yeah. Well, I think a replacement and an heir, which in a sense, even if they weren't on this bullshit and were like ready to let her rule or whatever, I think they would have still been looking because of their obsession with the lines. And right now Arthur's line is straight up like a question mark.
One person. Yeah.
It's really, yeah. But you know, when you do clownery or slavery in this case, so yeah, Max is all prideful. She broke my nose and like all this, how dare she? And Erebus is like, pump the brakes, sir. You forget she's actually way more even in this situation, she's more valuable than you. Like, and I'm sure
He's like,
that irks him too. He's like, you could die. Like, go ahead and attack her. Like, I don't actually care. I could find somebody to come in here and restrain her. Somebody else. We got a whole lot of mage guards back here. We got some Merlins who want to be mage guards. So
I just like Erebus was like, she could break your eyes, your toes, your nose, your ankle. She could break your heart. She could break your. Right. I don't care what she breaks.
I don't care what she breaks.
She can break whatever she wants. You just gonna have to take it. Sit here and
like,
smile.
Why are you taking this so personally, dude? Like you have her restrained. You knocked her
messed
out
up
and have her restrained. And then you're mad because she tried to get out of the restraint that you locked her in. Like, are you for real? Like,
But you are like, you're messed up because you have her restrained and didn't even restrain her properly. Because it sounds like you had a job to do and you didn't do it competently. I think
it was Arthur's strength. Because I think it's probably whatever the serum is wearing off. And also, y'all didn't put ether cuffs on her. I'm not giving ideas. I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, it sounds like you had a job to do and you didn't do it competently.
I'm just saying, incompetence at work here. So they tie Bree back up because again, she busted her head, or Ramirez busted her head, so she can't actually fight back anymore at this point. So they tie her back up in a way that she wouldn't be able to. I think they like tie her arm to her hip or something, like just in a way that she wouldn't be able to like break out of. Erebus has them call for the doctor to like re-administer the serum, and then also for William to heal her injury because she's bleeding from her head. When Bree brings up the oaths, Erebus says that their intention with the serum is to keep her safe. So this is just a straight up loophole, because that's not why you gave her the serum. You gave her the serum so you could knock her out and transport her to this place to like keep her on lockdown.
Yeah,
but
so you could experiment with her,
yeah. So, but the justification for it is that it's for her safety, and so Erebus's oaths are not.
You're able to get around your oath.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Which also, you know, we've seen how these loopholes work, because the same kind of situation that happened with Lord Davis in how he was able to open all those gates, both when he was in school and then like in the events of Legendborn. It's because in his head, he's still serving the order. So we find out that the serum suppresses ether. And at some point, William comes in to heal her, check that she's stable post the injection, because the serum is also experimental. So we've got the added history of doing experiments on Black people. I love that for everyone involved.
And it probably was the order behind that too.
100%. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. First millions, I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of them, but I'm definitely sure they did that too.
Yeah. Also, like the betrayal of William, like, why are you here?
Well, the thing is though, it's like, even the way when William comes in, it's kind of initially when he's like, and call William in, it's like, oh, William's in on this. But just the way that he kind of approaches it makes it like seem less like he's in. You know what I mean? Like, they're kind of like, your job is to make sure she doesn't die type situation. And he's very much like, this is, you literally, because there's a point where he's like, you didn't have to do any of this. You could have just talked to her, or like, yeah.
It don't matter. William looks kind of sus in the light right now.
He does, and He does, but I feel like he only does in the sense that we don't know what's going on.
And we don't. And all we know is that William is there when she's
exactly.
being
And we see that
transported.
he
And
right while she's being transferred, and he in the way that he can kind of like stands up for her in the sense of just being like, y'all didn't have to do any of this, and he also does apologize as Bree passes back out. But again, it's too
apologies don't
vague.
take away betrayal.
Right. So it's too vague to like to know what's going on and to know what his involvement is in this situation, or like how much he
But
knew
it
beforehand,
smells like
how much
betrayal.
yes. Also, again, the mage guard are being mouthy with him, so I'm just like, what? Like, do y'all wish y'all were scions? Is that what it is? Like, what's the deal? Like, y'all are really salty. Like,
I feel like part of them
salty.
would want to like blame it on them, like their demon side coming out, but because you know how like on Game of Thrones, they would like to say so like it's the blood of the dragon, and I feel like the blood of the demon,
right?
The demon's coming out.
Something, but they are just extremely salty.
And Raz was kind of salty, so like that could track. Like
maybe
demons may naturally just be salty.
Just naturally, they're just like,
just
look,
naturally salty.
Don't like unless I'm sowing chaos. I just feel like all this is trash, and I don't like.
And that's why Max is mad because he's ready to sow chaos. He doesn't want the chaos sowed on him. He feels taken aback. He's like, "Excuse me, I'm the chaos sower, not the other way around."
So that's how that ends. I hate it here.
And we pick right up in chapter 15 with a pun. Bree is in a trap. Like cheese for a mouse.
Bree in the trap.
Bree, you get it. Mm. So she's solidly in the trap where she comes to, and Regent Gabriel and his seneschal Tacitus, I think. Test. But like,
I think it's Tacitus.
Tacitus? I don't like it. Anyways,
he's Italian, capacity. Which I don't know that means anything. But he's
why would that? It sounds like it's like based on Latin. Roman. Anyways,
but he's a Merlin, isn't he? So he could be. Who knows how old he is?
Who knows?
Yeah.
They're there to test Bree's capacity. Oh, both of them are testing Bree's capacity to understand when she's been had, because like homegirl wakes up and she's like, "What's happening? Why am I here? What is happening going on?" And basically they're like, "We're here to question you about your abilities and a way that makes us safe." And she's like, "You could have just asked me." And they're like, we are the ones who actually make the decisions what's going to make us feel the most safe. And what's going to make us feel the most safe is if you are drugged up on our highly experimental drug that we just created to make sure that we got you out of here, actually. And they're smiling the whole time. Like, I'm smiling because they're smiling.
They're acting like this is a regular thing. We just have a few questions. It's like, bro, I'm in an interrogation room and y'all brought me in here drugged.
They probably drug people in interrogation all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
It's just that Bree's taken aback because she was told that her father told her. She was told by Applecare that her being scion of Arthur made her supposed to be privy to the things that are going to be happening to people, and not her on the opposite side of being victimized by these people. But guess what? That's not happening. She's not here. There's been too many memes. Okay, so they start off her interrogation with, "Why don't you tell me about your father, Edwin Matthews, and what you told him about our order?" So Bree's like, as she should, interpret that as a threat, because the first thing they come to ask her is about her father. Like, what does your father know? And she's like, "What have you done to him?" And Gabriel has the freaking nerve to blink and be like, "Oh my gosh, like done to him? We haven't done anything to your father. He is under liege supervision, unbeknownst to him. There's no reason to harm your family, Crown Scion. We just need to understand how far information has spread."
Just fake.
And I'm like, be absolutely for real. Like, y'all are not even like to act like she's not that she shouldn't perceive that as a threat. Like, you're just playing. You're acting like you're cats and Bree's your mouse, and you're like playing with her like she's a little toy. The next thing they ask her, thankfully for Bree, like they're like what they have observed is that what she says that she's told him anything is like exactly what they surmise from watching her father. So like, good thing that she hasn't really told her father anything. Kind of. But then the next question they ask is like about her mother's time at the school, and as she knew about that, and like Bree's heart rate goes up, but luckily for her, Gabriel was like, well, that could be related to the medicine. So Bree's like, okay,
Right.
now I have an out to like do a couple of things a little bit funny, like play into. And so whenever they question her about like Bree's understanding of her mother's time of the school and the fact that she witnessed the gate opening, she is like, oh, what is that? I don't know about that. What's going on over there? And then Tacticus, who seems like he's the one who's the most suspicious of Bree, like actually not being aware of everything, is like, well, why did you find your way here 25 years later? And he doesn't even speak to her. He speaks like to Gabriel, basically, like why did she get here? And then she explains like what we saw in book 1, where she like ran into the demons at the party and Cell and Victoria and all of that. And then they asked, which I think is an interesting question, is that like, when was it that she first saw demons? Like, was that the first time she's ever seen demons? And for me, I'm like, does that mean that there's a possibility that as a sign of Arthur, she could have seen demons, like they could have appeared to her without the Order's knowledge? And like, how scary is that if like demons would have recognized that Bree was the sign of Arthur before anyone else did, is she didn't have her abilities in check? Like maybe, and her mom had been practicing root. So what would have happened if that had happened to Bree at a younger age, and without her mother practicing root?
Yeah, it's just, and I think like, yeah, I don't know. All of this is infuriating. I don't think I have anything to add other than like anger. But also, I'm glad that like there's the other thing is like Bree didn't explain. I'm glad that Bree didn't tell them everything about what she could do, which will come up later.
I
but
mean,
like
right now, yeah. And then
I
like,
mean, even before this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's thinking with like, I'm glad that even whenever she's in this state, initially she's able to figure out like how to play the game in a way that she feels will keep the people that she's worried about safe. But yeah, we'll see. That's how it's like a false confidence, because the next thing they ask is like, why did she end up at UNC? Like, did she always want to go there? And she's like, yes, my mother went here, so I thought I would too, which was not a lie. But it does get unveiled that because Excalibur is stored there, that the line of Arthur is supposedly just like drawn there. So it possibly explains why, one, her mother went there 25 years ago, and then why Bree just naturally like had an inclination to go there, and it might have been colored by her thinking she was just following a legacy, but she just couldn't help the inclination to like be where Excalibur was. Which we know Excalibur is a very powerful weapon, but we think about it as a weaponry and not necessarily as a magical item. And so like thinking about something that has the ability to call someone to it over centuries, like not even the same person, like just a bloodline.
And also like not even, because they're not awakened. They're not all awakened. I think it's an interesting bit of like lore, and I'd be interested too to see like what other objects also do that or could do that. I guess it just depend on like if they're tied to certain people or whatever, but
like, does Merlin have one? Because he's Merlin, like,
right.
So here's the thing. And the way that they were talking about Bree's mother witnessing what happened at the gates, and then the way they were talking about Bree conveniently being there when the gates are opened again, you would think perhaps that they've put the maps together and recognized that the perpetrator for the first one was the same perpetrator as they figured out for the second one.
I thought they said that. I thought not that they said that. I
They
thought that Bree and them told them that. Maybe not, because obviously it was like within the space between the books or whatever. But I thought that that would have been mentioned. But I think it
you
also
would
serves
think
their narrative if because they're not even saying
they
at
can,
least publicly that Davis did the most recent one. So maybe it just serves their narrative
yeah.
better to just
But it's not even
yeah.
like they're saying, not even like they're saying this now in a way they're like, oh yeah, we got to maintain the like the sacredness of what we knew. No, they still have not put the maps together.
Mhm.
They still are they're saying that the person who opened the gates the first time was Natasha Kane, and that the mesmer that was put on Bree's mother was administered by the former people who hold the offices that like Gabriel and Tacitus currently
Mhm.
serve. But like I feel like their lack of like putting the maps together has to be because they're so busy trying to come up with that serum, trying to figure out like the rest of the bloodline for Bree, that like they were like too busy trying to get rid of her being in the order or the line that they didn't neglected to notice what was actually already wrong with
Mhm.
their like line and what policy of the order. Because why would they do that?
Right.
The foreigner is the problem, not the order as it currently.
But it's also like I do in
It
some
could
ways
be.
am like not appreciate, but I think it's important that they kind of like mention their predecessors because it reminds the reader that this is not just these current regions or these current people. Like it is a
Yeah, it's
systemic
been like
thing.
a
It is a
systemic
thing that's
thing.
yeah.
But it's also like a thing of like the order's like policy on just ensuring things stay the same. Like for me, it gets staying the same because they kind of like they're still everyone here's kind of chasing immortality.
Mhm.
Um and I think that's the unexplored component of all this like work they're going to do is that they're really just trying to be immortal.
Mhm.
And chasing that they've like done some really reckless, awful things, including in this moment. They're just like, well, we'll conclude the questioning for now, and I'm going to just mesmer you. And instead of just like doing anything to like kind of talk Bree down, like 3, 2, 1, he just goes. Taticus just goes up to her and says, "Sleep and forget," because he's the foremost mesmerist in the
Mhm.
whole of the order. So he is like super confident in his ability to just like knock her out. And Bree thinks about the fact that like she's been able to withhold that her mother and she can both like break off from a mesmer. So it's really cool that you're like, okay, like as a reader, you know Bree doesn't know what's about to happen, but you see it happen to her and you're like, well, at least she'll probably be able to bounce back from this. Yet
Right.
the next thing we read, yeah, when Bree started the conversation with Gabriel, he said good morning to her. The next
Mhm.
thing we see is Bree being greeted by Seska, who says good afternoon, Brianna.
Mhm.
In combination with the mesmers, as we'll go, it just yeah.
Yeah. And like I do one I appreciate the like bringing back to the fact that she like just the callback to the fact that she can break mesmers, but also the fact that she doesn't do it right away in part because she's still not really
Like in control of her
she's not
facility
in
in the
control of
moment.
her facility. She also doesn't really know what's going on. Like she's still and
Yeah.
not that she knows more of what's going on as the time goes, but like she's yeah, like the serum is still in
Faculties.
her. She's woozy. Her brain is not quite working as well as it could be. But and I say like one thing I think I wrote down for this chapter is that it's very repetitive in a lot of ways, but it doesn't read that
Mm-hmm.
way. So like
Mm-mm.
craft wise, I really like this chapter in the way that it's written because a lot of it is kind of cyclical, but it doesn't feel like that.
It reinforces the idea in a way that it can be cinematic in your head without trying to be overly cinematic. Like, I feel like a lot of times people talk about the fact that like modern day writers have kind of gotten into a place where they're trying to recreate the cinematic experience that people are able to get in movies on the page, and it doesn't quite work out that well. But in this moment, I think Tracy was able to capture, like, whenever you see a movie that does like Groundhog Day or whatever, like the way that they actually are able to they're able to work well is because there's some components about like the repetition that stay the same, so it feels real. Because if it were to start off differently every time, you're like, this doesn't feel like a real repetition. And in this chapter, it actually does it, and it doesn't feel like it feels scary. Because you're like, you're in the cycle with Bree, and you're like, you're scared for her well-being.
Right. And it's like something is slightly different each time. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this one, when I say, so with Gabriel, it was good morning. With Seska, it's good afternoon. Sestra, my bad. With Sestra, it's good afternoon. What I didn't note in whenever she was talking to Gabriel was that like she asked where she is, and then she talks about the right, and then Gabriel says, yeah, that was last night, right? So he gives her an answer to like what the thing she's asking. So here it's Sestra and Erebus. She asks the same questions. Where am I? They say the same answer: a secure facility. So that also goes to show you how trained the people who are the questioners are to like trying to be responsive of they're trying to maintain Bree's cooperation without like jolting her in a way that will make her uncooperative, and like take the like whole process that they've been going under away from like where it's been successful. They know they've been successful in acting and interacting with her in a certain way, and they know that if they were to test it, they probably would not get the answers they're looking for, and they don't want to. Well, hear Sestra. They don't, even though they're annoyed by it, they don't want to risk too much because they know that the drugs they have her on are experimental. They're not quite sure of the parameters of it and all this stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So also Bree's irreplaceable because she's one of one. She's number one. She's the only one. There's no one else in the line of Arthur.
Oh my god.
So Bree says again, we were at the lodge, and then impatiently Sestra says, we were at the lodge last night. And then Bree goes to the same thing again. As she thinks about last night, she starts to have the same memories about the Ogoth, the needle, a van, her head, William. And she said, you shot me with something. And Sestra rolls again. You can tell she is from the same line as Tor.
Bro, because she has she's just irritated.
She has no compunction about like the way that they're treating this girl. It doesn't mean anything to her.
And then has the nerve to be impatient, like you aren't mesmering her on purpose.
As if the only way you'll get answers is from her. Like there's no one else. What are you impatient to do next? Because she's got to be your only priority.
Irritated because it's repetitive, but she can't remember the last time you guys had a conversation because you literally wiped your memory. Like, be for real.
Also, like, when were you last near Sestra? Because the last one, that's what's like eerie about it. It's like Sestra is irritated, but like, when was Sestra questioning? Because the last questioning we saw was with Gabriel and Tacticus. So like, why is Sestra irritated? And if it were just like that she's seen the recording, girl, how does you watch the recording to be irritated? Like, what is going on? So it's like, it's just really,
it definitely makes it, it definitely kind of brings to light, or not brings to light, it kind of suggests that the first time we see the questioning may have not been the first time she was questioned.
Yes.
And that she may have been questioned between the two, this time and the one we just read.
And then also we saw that like they said good morning, Bree, but then they said last night to Bree. So why wouldn't she have been questioned during the night? They don't care about that girl. They clearly probably questioned her that same night. So it's
great. And don't they also say,
and are they telling her the right times?
I was gonna say, because don't they say that the Ogoth was last night again? this time.
Again, now.
Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
it could be the same day as the last time you were questioned, but it literally, you have no clue.
You have no clue.
Terrifying. Tracy,
and
you
there's
will
another
pay for your
way
crimes.
to throw, like, they want to disorient her. And they want to disorient her as much as possible because they want to be able to, it's really cruel. Like, this is definitely a CIA, like, unapproved by law tactic way of doing things. So Sestra says that Bree was at the lodge last night. So yeah, throwing off Bree's timeline. When Bree asked about how she's in this state in the same way that she asked whenever she's talking to Gabriel, Sestra says that repetition is tedious, as she's clearly speaking of ones that Bree cannot currently remember. And then Bree inquires about Cell, and then like ways that she can send up for him as the sign of Arthur. And they're looking at her
tied
like
up in an interrogation room. Like, why are you asking about Selwyn? I understand. And you were like in immediate danger. Clearly things are not going the way they were supposed to go. Cell gonna have to wait, child. I'm sorry. I admire your what is it? I don't even know what this is.
Sense of
justice? I admire you looking out for your friends, I guess, but let's put the mask on.
Oxygen mask on.
Literally. let's do that. Let's put yours on before we start worrying about Cell. But still them too.
Even Cell would tell you to your face, Brianna, worry about you. Like, if he were in here and he was restrained as well, he would tell you to think about yourself. That's what he would do. To be fair though, I do like this kind of throws Sestra and him off of their line of questioning, probably, because it's like, you know, give Bree's brain a rest for a second. Even though it's not really giving her brain a rest. Like, give her a minute to be able to like pull together her druthers so she can kind of do some subterfuge if she can in this like way, because she's been under duress this whole time. Her body's under duress because she's got this foreign substance in it, keeping down her abilities. Like, the girl needs to like not to be able to like think about something that's not herself for a second, because it's not looking pretty.
That's right.
So she is like Sestra is like being just like delighting in being cruel to Bree and talking about how like Cell's probably like at the behest of his like powers taking over his body, and whatever friendship she may have felt buried through whatever friendship she may have felt with Cell are probably currently buried under the sentence of his condition as a demon. So he's probably not even himself anymore. And Bree is like, I don't believe it. I don't think he'll succumb. And Sestra sits back, and then here goes the word fool again. Then you are a fool. It is impossible to stop the process once it's begun. The stronger the Merlin, the greater their fall. So again, the mythos of like what that all is like about being a demon. So Bree has the temerity to ask, if Cell was able to protect Nick again, his oath would be fulfilled. Are you even looking for Nick and his father? Is that a lie too? And Sestra says, that's right. You and Nick Davis are close, and according to our intel, inappropriately so for two scions.
Girl, this is not something that we need to talk about right now while you have her locked up. I just personally don't think that it's a priority. But I also know what you're trying to do, so
what
leave her alone comes down into, like, leave Bree alone, please.
Bree just needs to. So what Sestra actually does is just be like, I'm going to take this moment to just make it clear why two scions should not be together, and like what we can do to you. Like, your lineages are forbidden. You shouldn't muddle the bloodlines and endanger them. And it may not be concerned to either of you yet at 16 and 17, but the outlaw has outlawed the relationships between scions who have the potential to conceive with good reason. We cannot risk a firstborn child born of two lines, regardless of your intent or precautions. And She says, I see the defiance in you, Bree, so consider this warning, even though you'll forget it. We know everything about you. We know who you love. We know who you'll miss.
They're just the
And
worst.
Bree thinks about it as Sestra taking glee at striking at her and Nick's future before they even had the present as an option. And I'm just like, this is like, it's like Sestra is taking undue cruelty at the fact that like she could just has Bree in a chair. Bree, who's probably way more powerful than she ever, like Sestra's ever been, had ever imagined she could be. And is like gleefully being like, we have learned things about you that you won't even remember that we extracted from you.
And that you won't even remember this warning. Like that we have that much power that like
you don't remember,
I'm
well,
warning you, but
you have
you're
to
not even
believe
gonna
whatever
remember this. Like
you won't even believe what time of the day. You have to, your own understanding of the day and what time it is based on me. Like whoever walks in here and talks to you.
She's definitely delighting in that power that she has.
And then Erebus is no better. Because they pull up a video of the right. That's right. They recorded the right. And what they see is a 30-second sequence wherein Bree clutches the Excalibur in one hand and the Pendragon coin in the other. There's a roaring sound, a flash, and then a flame shift from blue to crimson. The Mage Guard and Cinder Cells work together and cast a near instant shield to protect the Regents. Excalibur then drops, and Bree blinks back into the world around her, with being visibly shaken with her eyes wide when Teresa appears and presses her wrench into her arm. So even though she had that vision of Arthur and Vera during the rite, it wasn't like it like was within like a minutes long sequence like it felt like in her head. It was all within 30 seconds. This is all just, and like the Teresa getting her with the needle was all within a 30-second period. So she probably
like obvious
like
they had planned for this to happen, like regardless of what her magic did, like they were gonna do this regardless. It wasn't like a protection.
They just needed confirmation that she was indeed the sign of Arthur, because like they had eyewitness, but they wanted it on record, like recorded and with like Regents there to show that she was actually the sign of Arthur. And so that's honestly all that, like they did not care if the rite was actually done or not. Like they just needed confirmation. So pause, and Erebus like pauses the video, then rewinds before the flash. When Sestra pulls up the screen, she says, let's discuss what happened when the flames turned red. You spoke to our emissaries about your abilities. You describe yourself as a descendant of, and then she smiles cruelly, the line of Vera, which is a clever adoption of our nomenclature.
I was like, how are you gonna tell me I'm adopting your shit?
Right. Don't nobody care about your whack freaking line, girly.
Come on, be for real. Not only that, but y'all are like king colonizer.
Right. What do you think
gonna tell me
from?
You originated this? Okay.
Please. So she says these abilities are, as reported by the other Legendborn, are impressive. 8th generation of manipulation into a wall, breathing red mage flame. Is that correct? That's what happened the night of the Ogoth when I first pulled Excalibur. And you had not used those abilities before that night? No. Bree is not being completely clear. Like, you know, again, to her powers that she is not being completely honest with them. However,
right, like she's like discombobulated or whatever, but this is not a truth serum.
No, she's just like, right. But at the same time, like they're taking advantage of the fact that she does not have like full like control over her faculties. So they're really doing. So Sestra prods could it have been because of Arthur's call. And this is a thing that irritates Bree, Arthur's call, when refilling it. So she naturally feels it in her body, and she scowls. And Erebus raises his eyebrow and says something to Cher about the call of Arthur. And her mouth turns sour, and she says it was not enjoyable. Erebus says it was written that the call of Arthur in particular can appear quite violent. Sure, Bree mutters. Then tell us about the other abilities of this line that Sestra says when she looks at her tablet. when you pulled the sword, were you a medium at this time? Bang. Bree, within another questioning, revealed that she was a medium.
Mm-hmm. She might have, I think she maybe told them that already. I don't think she told them all of what that means. Because they knew about the root. Like, she did. I feel like they told her about the root. Or she told them about the root, but like,
we just
not everything about it.
heard Cell tell her not to tell them anything about, like, to
No,
not
I think
show
it
her
was not to
aether,
show
her
them.
red aether.
I don't remember, honestly.
I don't think that.
I felt like
I
there
think
were
only
certain things they knew about it. You know what I
thought
mean?
only Cell and William knew about the root.
Because
I
again,
could be
she
wrong,
did
but
say,
I thought it was only Cell and William
I
in the
think they
order that knew about her
told.
root. Maybe Nick.
I think they told her about. I think, or again, I could be wrong, or could be like assuming. But my understanding was that she had told them about, because she had to tell them how she's the scion of Arthur, right? And in telling them how she's the scion of Arthur, you have to bring up Vera and how that, like, what happened in that sense. So I don't think they know what the abilities are necessarily, but they know that she has it. But that was my assumption.
I could see that. I just don't recall her having.
Yeah, I couldn't point to like when specifically that was said, which is why I'm like,
And it's the way that, like, Cell has been very protective of her
and like
explaining bloodcraft or rootcraft at all.
she's definitely not told them all her abilities. She's definitely not told them about the other root crafters. Like, she's, you know what I mean? Like, she's definitely protective over it. But I do think they had to have known about at least some of it.
Well,
because of how because of the fact that she's the scion of Arthur, and like those two things are kind of connected.
Yeah, I mean, but she could have had a bit. I don't know, man.
Like, she would have been a medium regardless.
I feel like I feel like that this is like unveilings that she said in previous.
I mean, yeah, it's
things
possible
that we're not privy to, and she can't currently remember.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's supposed to make her feel even more disoriented, because she's like, oh crap, when did I unveil that?
Mm-hmm.
So they ask her, like, if she was a medium at the time she pulled the sword. Bree just thinks, I'm so exhausted, and says, that night both Vera and Arthur were within me. So clearly she's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would she really have wanted to tell them this if she was able to, like, say what she wanted to say?
Mm-hmm.
Erebus questions, as in you could interact with them, and she said, I could hear their voices and they could control my body. Exactly what she does not need to be sharing with these people.
Right.
Both of them go still and exchange glances. Sestra then clears her throat and says, the other Legendborn reported that your voice changed during and after the battle. Are you saying the spirits of the dead can use your body without your will and speak through you if they wish, as in possession? And Bree says yes. Then Erebus inhales sharply and says, I would explore this ability further, Regent, perhaps without the suppressant.
Bro.
And Sestra waves her hand and says, another time.
He's like, look, he's over here, Birdman hand
immediately.
Like, he said, oh, okay, I'm trying to get in with, I'm trying to see what's up. Trying to tap in. He was trying to tap in on that ability.
Immediately, right then and there. He
was
not even
like, the
right
thing
now.
is it's both a hint into who he is, and it isn't, because the Order has been doing experiments, right? It's not like he literally, like, the fact, like, I just feel like if the organization that you created in order to fight the Demon King is also a place in which he would thrive, I feel like you need to do some inner work.
The way that he just sits there and he's like
he don't even really gotta hide.
He don't gotta do nothing. He probably built all the anyways.
Right.
So Bree's natural reaction is like alarm, because this is like to say, this is what Cell said could happen, that the Seneschals would want to examine me, but I never imagined it in these circumstances, not like this, and I should have.
Yeah.
And then,
I mean, I don't blame her for not but she should have. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't, because I
Mm-hmm.
can understand not having, especially in the like time period that we and she lives in, I could understand underestimating. You know what I mean? Like not understanding the
Yeah.
true danger of the situation and that they would go
And
this far.
she really thought that being the sign of Arthur would not let her be that vulnerable to these people.
Right, that it would be some kind of protection, but then, like, she's
Mm-hmm.
seeing that, like, even because even when Erebus was telling Max, like, "Look, she's more valuable than you," but that value is not based on her humanity, right? Like, it's not in a sense that they value her. They value what is in her body and what she can do and what they can take from that, and you know what I mean? Like, it's so yeah, it's she thought it was one way, even though she knew she was gonna be getting like pushback. Um, but it was definitely much or is definitely much deeper than that.
Then Sestra adds insult to injury and says, so Arthur's aether constructs an armor. Our intel says you cannot forge them, that you draw on a large quantity of aether and your attempts at castings result in burns. Bree's face flushes. She says yes, because again, she's just combobulated her body. She's just like,
Mhm. And
you're
she's still
just,
embarrassed by that.
they're throwing her off even more because they know she feels embarrassed by it.
Mhm.
And now she's feeling further judged by them because now she knows that they know that she could also be possessed by Arthur, and even with her ability to be possessed by him, she still can't control. She feels super like they know what they're
Yeah.
doing.
And it's also like justification for what they're doing to
Yeah.
her. As opposed to teaching her how to control her abilities. They're like, "Oh, she can't do it. She's out of
Oh, you're the
control. We have to
problem.
contain her."
So Sestra has the nerve to say, somehow this interview has been both fascinating and disappointing. She gestures to Erebus and says, we're done for now. He then seizes Bree's face in both of his hands, says, rest now, Brianna, and forget. She goes into a dreamless sleep. But at the very end of this chapter, we have 3 different greetings. 1, good evening, Brianna. Then 2, good morning, Brianna. Then 3, good afternoon, Brianna. Then
Tracy, I why? What was the reason?
hurt people, and we're
I
feeling
just
very hurt.
literally, because what, like, who told you to do this? How dare you? Honestly. But, like, keep going. But how dare you? Anyway, who is your MVP of this chapter?
Um, yeah, I went ahead and made it Vera. Because
Mm,
Vera is like the one bright spot we get through this episode
yeah.
of like, because she actually tells Bree, like, Arthur was trying to lure Bree in with some like, if I could teach you what I have to charge. And Vera
Right.
was like, so you successfully closed off a stream of like at this plane of life and death. This is where we are. This is what is happening. This is what they've
Mm-hmm.
been doing with it. This is what you need to understand. So not trying to play this like manipulative game full frontal, like, cause like she has been manipulative. I'm not gonna say that she hasn't, but she's in this current moment, she's not doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what Bree needs right now, because girl is not only was she already currently confused at that time, she was gonna. We just finished a chapter with her. She's just not fully aware of anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Confusion is like the easiest words to put on that, but that doesn't even get to the full breadth and depth of what's happening to her by the end of this like episode. So I'm like, thank goodness for the bright spot of Vera and that, like not making it any worse or dire. And then also props to Brie because she is surviving, and in this kind of like situation, that's the most you can ask for is like, are you surviving?
Yeah.
How about
I
you?
was going back and forth between Vera and Brie as well. But I ended up choosing Brie. I think I think in once really, which is funny because like I had mentioned, like when I first read it, I was like, "What are you doing?" But her no, and her just kind of like being honest and truthful about how she like wants to be connected to these people, I think is important. And I think it's important before this happens for her to already reject them before they reject her, in the sense that, like, if she were to be like, yeah, I'm gonna like join the order and whatever, and they do all of this, I think that the like betrayal of it would be different, or I guess would hit different. But in this case, it kind of reinforces, like, she does not want this, you know. And yeah, so I think that, and her kind of coming, I don't know that she's fully come to terms with it, but her at least like beginning to really understand that it's not something that she wants. Um and then just like, even with all of what's going on, like, fighting back and um kind of like pushing through all of this. I think that even though she's like obviously drugged up and is like disoriented and everything, like she was still able to keep certain things to her chest, you know what I mean? And not like be manipulated or um interrogated into like spilling more than she really wanted to, even in the moments where she felt like kind of broken down. So um that's kind of where I landed, but I kind of wish that, or definitely wish that she didn't have to do any of this. So yeah. And then who did you binge?
The whole entire order. F the group they claim. F
I know
them.
that's
F their
right.
mothers. F their grandmothers. Their grandfathers. Their great grandfathers. Dishonor on their cows. And dishonor on everyone. Actually,
No, for
from
real.
from the way that it's all been set up, so that Bree is like in a situation. They had that whole month to find Nick. They had the whole month to figure out like what was going on with Dud Davis. They had a whole month to do all, but what did they spend that whole month doing? Setting up a facility so they could kidnap Bree on the time she's supposed to do her oath, and then tell her the whole.
Just like foul.
So, and like not even like a murder most foul, like a captivity most foul. That's not the title. Captivity most
A
foul.
captivity most foul. Ugh.
I'm so disgusted at the order. And at this point, I feel like they might just become my like book long freaking binge. Like someone's got to do something really, really terribly awful for me not to be able to pinpoint all the reasons why it comes back down to the order being binged.
Yeah, for me it was Arthur, and really for the same reasons that you said, but in my head I was like, okay, so this first chapter he's coming in being all manipulative, trying to like get Bree to, or trying to like cajole Bree into letting him teach her how to use the power, which we already know means that he's like, he has ulterior motives, right? He doesn't actually care about Bree. He immediately kind of like categorizes her as something that he owns. And then on top of that, he created the order. Like all of these things, like yes, it's uh evolved from when he created it, and it's not necessarily how he envisioned it. Even like we see in the funeral too, like it's not like he agrees with everything they do, but like it's his fault that it's this way. It's his fault that like all of the little rules and the oaths and all those kinds of things that they maybe like twist to their own ends and kind of like find loopholes for, like it's all stems back to him. And it's one of those things where it's like you can't go back and meet him and then realize like, oh, he never meant for it to be this way. He's actually a good dude. Like, no, he actually sucks. And it didn't necessarily turn out. But like if he had been born in this time, like I don't think he actually, and especially if he had like come into it as a white dude, I don't think he would actually have like any real issues with how things are being run. So I benched him because this is all his fault and he continues to be trash. And then Lena in the chat, she made Bree MVP and then benched Arthur as well.
Man, you want to think like, oh, it's only gonna get better from here, right?
Yes and no.
Because Tracy doesn't. She doesn't. she does not play.
No.
This is not about for the fun funs. This is not just like freedom. Like, we're not just like reading and like love and light and everything's gonna be magical and amazing. No.
Mm-mm. It's yeah. It definitely gets worse before it gets better, and then it gets worse again.
And if you were looking for a bright and happy series to get into, I'm so sorry, babes. Pick up one of
This
the
ain't the
bonus
one.
episodes. We might be able to help you out there, but not this one.
But it's also so
And with
good,
that,
and so and I will say, like, it's one of those things that's like it's infuriating and it's heartbreaking, and it's like all of it is bad, but it also is so true, which also makes it infuriating and heartbreaking. It's like none of this feels
far-fetched.
unnecessary or exactly or far-fetched. It feels like, yeah, this feels
Of
like what would
course.
happen. So
And if you're upset, be mad that it's real. Don't be mad.
yeah, don't be mad at Tracy, although I am
Don't
mad
be
at
mad at
Tracy,
Tracy.
but like
Yeah, but you can be both.
You can be both. Meet in the middle, dance all night.
Oh, Beyonce, how we love you. And with that, thank you all for listening. Join us next week when we discuss chapters 16 through 18.
Wizard Team is part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com and follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye.
Bye.